Welcome to the Lead, Engage, Thrive webinar on quiet leadership, introverts and extroverts working together. I'm Joanne Baker, a rural leadership specialist with Manitoba Agriculture. Manitoba Agriculture industry leadership staff provide free webinars on building the organizational capacity within the agriculture sector, which results in high-performing organizations. This content is designed for informational purposes only. This information is not intended to be a substitute for professional advice. Organizations should consult their professional advisors related to specific situations. Today in our webinar, we're going to cover the characteristics of introverts and extroverts, take a quiz to find your tendency, look at the science, and discuss how the two can work together to strengthen organizations. Today, we are going to explore how learning more about quiet leadership can help us to work and communicate better with each other. The goal of this webinar is to get a conversation started, to create an understanding of what it means to be an extrovert or an introvert, to get you thinking and talking about the two, and then to help you connect how this information could help your organization to become stronger. Our communities need the voice of both to become strong and vibrant. At the moment, there is a great deal of research and information available on the topic of introverts and extroverts. Matter of fact, if you Google extroverted leaders, introverted leaders come up. It is fascinating reading, and my son Jonathan, who's a cartoonist, drew all of the illustrations you will see throughout this presentation. You will notice that the characters are made up of the same shapes and are the reverse of each other. The same, but different, just like introverts and extroverts are. Most scientists agree that introversion and extroversion are among the most important personality traits shaping the human experience. This is true all over the world, regardless of gender, culture, or language. Susan Cain, from her book Quiet, The Power of Introverts in a World That Can't Stop Talking, says, introversion and extroversion influences our choice of friends and mates, how we make conversation, resolve differences, and show love. It affects the careers we choose and whether or not we succeed at them. It governs how likely we are to exercise, function well without sleep, learn from our mistakes, place big bets in the stock market, delay gratification, and the type of leadership style used. It's reflected in our brain pathways, neurotransmitters, and remote corners of our nervous systems. Today, introversion and extroversion are two of the most researched subjects in personality psychology, arousing the curiosity of hundreds of scientists. We are starting to see a change in thinking that to be successful is to be extroverted. The world needs both, and the great leaders of our time show us this. Great extroverted leaders include Winston Churchill, Muhammad Ali, Steve Jobs, Oprah Winfrey, Ellen DeGeneres. Great introverted leaders include J.K. Rowling, Bill Gates, Albert Einstein, Steven Spielberg, and Mark Zuckerberg. In the 1920s, Carl Jung first categorized human beings as either extroverts, people who live connected to the world around them, or introverts, who spend more time in their own minds. Psychologists now assume everyone fits somewhere on an extrovert to introvert continuum. Those who are a balance of both are often called ambiverts. They are able to tap into the strengths of both introverts and extroverts as needed. There are different levels and types of introverts and extroverts. We are all unique with varying strengths and weaknesses, and each approaches the world in our own way. Not all introverts are bookworms, and not all extroverts wear lampshades to parties. Carl Jung said, there is no such thing as a pure extrovert or introvert. For our purposes today, we will be talking about tendencies and generalizations. Which side are you more likely to relate to? Which side do you think the leaders of organizations would identify with? Being able to identify these tendencies and what they mean is the first step in learning how to communicate with each other. So we're going to take a non-scientific quiz. On a piece of paper, write down either A or B as it applies to you for each question. Answer not what you think is the right thing to do or what you've been taught to do, but what you would prefer to do. What is your natural tendency? There are no right or wrong answers. You may feel that for some questions that you would fall in the middle or a little bit of both depending on the situation. That's true for all of us. But for today's purposes, this quiz is about, are you more likely to be an A or a B? When your plans for the evening have been canceled, how do you feel? A, happy, now you can read that good book or watch some Netflix, not wear pants? Or B, disappointed and you try to make new plans? When you go to a meeting or event, you A, arrive early to check out the layout of the room, and you strategically get a seat near the back on the end of the aisle, and you wait for the person beside you to speak to you. Or B, you arrive on time and sit in any seat that's available and introduce yourself to the person beside you. A, you tend to speak before you think, or B, you tend to speak before you think. When the speaker asks you to cheer, clap, stand up, and talk to your neighbor, role play. A, you find an excuse to leave the room, phone call you have to take, washroom trip, coughing fit, anything to get out of there. Or B, you actively participate. When your family or friends tell the restaurant that it's your birthday, you, A, want to crawl under the table, but you wear the hat and grin and bear it? Or B, enjoy getting to wear the silly hat and being sung to. You pose for a picture. When in a networking situation, do you A, have detailed conversations with 1 to 2 people and leave as soon as you can? Or B, talk to as many people as possible and are one of the last to leave? After spending a day with a group of people, you feel A, tired and exhausted even though you enjoyed the day, or B, energized and inspired. You wonder, what are the plans for the evening? Now, add up the number of A's and the number of B's. If you have more A's than B's, you tend to be an introvert. If you have more B's than A's, you tend to be an extrovert. If you have an equal number of A's and B's, then you have a tendency to be what is known as an ambivert, someone who uses introverted and extroverted tendencies depending on the situation. Depending on what you read, introverts make up 1/3 to 1/2 of the population. That's 1 out of every 2 or 3 people that you know. There are no simple ways to define an extrovert. These are the generalizations. And of course, extroverts also require some quiet time, often think before they speak, and are great listeners. Extroverts enjoy having an active social life. They are energized by interacting with friends and strangers alike. They are typically assertive, often work fast, make decisions quickly, multitask, and are not afraid of risk. Extroverts are great at thinking on their feet and are relatively comfortable with conflict. They think out loud and prefer talking to listening. They like to experience things in order to understand them. Dogs could be considered extroverts. Fred, the extroverted board member, likes to enthusiastically share his opinions. He likes to dive right in. Let's brainstorm some ideas. He sometimes dominates the conversation during meetings. He makes decisions quickly and is not afraid to take risks and try new things. He volunteers to represent the organization at events because he likes to meet new people, to socialize and network. Fred actively participates in the parking lot conversations that happen after the meeting. He likes to go out for coffee after the meeting with fellow board members. There are no simple ways to define an introvert. These are the generalizations, and many introverts are excellent public speakers, community leaders, and risk takers, usually calculated risk takers. Introverts often like to work slower, deliberately, and do one task at a time. They often have strong social skills and enjoy parties and business meetings, but after a while prefer to be at home. Introverts prefer to devote social time to close friends, family, and colleagues. They listen more and talk less and like to think before they speak. Introverts feel they express themselves better in writing than in conversation. They tend to dislike small talk and prefer deep conversations. Introverts tend to avoid conflict. They like to understand things before they experience them. Cats could be considered introverts. Introverts are not antisocial. They are differently social. Being introverted and shy are not the same thing. Being shy is a fear of social disapproval. Being introverted is having a preference for an environment that is not overstimulating. The two are confused because they sometimes overlap. Many shy people also turn inward. Sam, the introverted board member, likes to watch and listen what is going on during the meeting. He likes to think before he speaks. Sam says little at the meeting, but when he does speak, everyone listens because they know that what he says will be thought-provoking and will often move the organization forward. He thinks through issues before making decisions and is not afraid to take calculated risks when trying new things. He volunteers to do research, write letters, develops and delivers presentations, offers to make phone calls. Sam leaves the meeting when it is finished and seldom participates in the parking lot conversations that happen after the meeting. Sam does not go out for coffee with fellow board members. So now look at the spectrum. Where do you fit on it? Remembering your A's and your B's. Remember that no one is a pure introvert or extrovert. Do you tend to be in the introverted pale blue to royal blue zone or the yellow to red extroverted zone? Do you tend to be in the ambivert green zone? Much like some plants grow best in the sunlight and others do better in the shade, one is not more of a plant than the other. They just flourish in different settings. Introvert or extrovert, we all adjust how we come across according to the situation that we're in. The key is to know how to do this and still remain true to yourself. And now we'll look at the science of this. Our genetic makeup has a lot to do with which tendencies are strongest in each of us. Scientists and researchers have discovered that introverts and extroverts differ in how their brains process stimuli. According to the Introvert Advantage by Marty Olson-Laney, introverts have a longer neural pathway for processing stimuli. Information runs through a pathway that is associated with long-term memory, planning, and problem solving. It is complicated for introverts to process interactions and events. As they process information, introverts are carefully attending to their internal thoughts and feelings at the same time. The diagram on the left outlines the pathway that introverts use to process information. As introverts are thinking, they reach back into long-term memory to locate information. An introvert will often compare old and new experiences when making a decision, which slows the process down but leads to carefully thought-out decisions. This means that introverts have an active dialogue with themselves and usually walk around with many thoughts in their minds. Introverts think before they speak, form ideas in order to talk. The diagram on the right outlines the pathway that extroverts use to process information. For extroverts, the pathway is much shorter. It runs through an area in the brain where taste, touch, and visual and auditory sensory processing takes place. Extroverts tend to think by speaking to pull information from long-term memory to plan and problem solve. To think on their feet. Extroverts speak before they think and talk in order to form ideas. Understanding how introverts and extroverts process information is the first step to communicating with each other. Sam, the introverted board member, will take an issue and think about it, sleep on it, weigh the pros and cons. He makes a decision and then shares what he thinks. He sees this as the starting point for further discussion and is happy to discuss and change the idea from there. Fred, the extroverted board member, has a different approach. Because he's not thought about the issue yet, he wants to discuss with Sam how he made his decision, to basically go through what Sam has just done. The two are on different pages, and this causes frustration for both Fred and Sam. Sam is frustrated because he doesn't want to hash out what he just thought through, and he feels that Fred doesn't trust his opinions. Fred is frustrated because he doesn't understand how Sam reached his conclusions and feels that Sam is being inflexible. Understanding how introverts and extroverts think could improve their communication. Psychologist Hans Eisner found that introverts require less stimulation from the world in order to be awake and alert than extroverts do. This means introverts are more easily overstimulated. They have a high sensitivity to dopamine. Extroverts have a low sensitivity to dopamine, so require larger amounts of it. Scientists have also found that the brain's reward and pleasure system is activated by dopamine. Introverts feel less excitement from surprise or risk than extroverts do. Introverts are less likely to gamble or go skydiving than extroverts are. Sam, the introverted board member, hates busy, noisy restaurants where staff are singing happy birthday and clapping, and the waitress is asking you how your meal is, and the sports team is on all the TVs. He's miserable and sometimes grumpy. Sam feels exhausted. Sam, the introvert, hates going out for supper, to Christmas parties, to conference banquets where he is expected to mix and mingle. He prefers quiet spaces with music playing gently in the background. Fred, the extroverted board member, loves the excitement of a busy restaurant and is observant to everything that's going on around him. Fred feels energized. Fred, the extrovert, loves to go out for supper, Christmas parties, and the opportunities to mix and mingle at conferences. Fred prefers an environment that has sound and movement. You might find him watching Netflix while playing a game on his iPad. Another major difference is where we get our energy from. We all need some downtime, but it's very important for introverts. Extroverts' brains run on an energy-spending nervous system. They thrive in groups and gain energy from being with others. Introverts run on an energy-conserving nervous system. The more socializing they do, the less energy they have. Though introverts are drained by interaction, they can take great pleasure in watching what is going on around them. Think of it as a gas gauge. Sam, the introverted board member, goes to an organization convention, and his energy tank is full. The tank slowly drains with each social interaction. The longer he stays, the more empty the tank gets. Introverts become mentally tired when they are in groups. Introverts feel energized when focusing deeply on a subject or activity that really interests them. Overly stimulating environments are overwhelming. They have an active inner life and are at their best when they tap into it. Fred, the extroverted board member, goes to the same organization convention. If his energy tank is half full, the longer he stays and socializes, the fuller the energy tank gets. Given a choice, extroverts usually prefer more stimulating environments that give them frequent opportunities to speak with others. In quiet environments, extroverts are prone to feeling bored and restless. They are actively engaged in the world around them and at their best when tapping into its energy. Recognizing in yourself what you need to re-energize and then finding ways to communicate this to others makes for understanding. One challenge for introverts is the distinction between comfort zone and strengths. Our society would have us believe that the only way to get ahead is to continually be pushing yourself out of your comfort zone, your areas of strength. To be an effective board member, this is sometimes necessary, but it's not always the case. To constantly be working out of your area of strength creates a great deal of stress. And in terms of board member engagement, it has been found that people are more engaged in their organizations if they have the opportunity to work in areas that they enjoy and are good at, working to their strengths. When introverts are able to recharge their energy and are comfortable in finding ways to fit into the extroverted culture, they are more willing to take on new things, to take calculated risks, to have their ideas heard. When introverts learn how to have a conversation, saying that they are not stuck in their comfort zone, they are working to their strengths, it makes it possible to find solutions that work for everyone. This helps all board members to become stronger leaders in their organizations. Introverts like to find their limitations, then stretch them within reason when they are ready. The challenge in all of this is recognizing the differences and accepting that it's okay to be one or the other, that both approaches have an equal and important role to play in organizations. Susan Cain says, this switch from the culture to personality has made room for a remarkably narrow range of personality styles. We are taught to be great is to be bold, to be happy is to be sociable. We have lost sight of who we really are. 1/2 to 1/3 of the population are introverts. If this number surprises you, it is because so many people pretend to be extroverts. Closet introverts are everywhere. The extroverted ideal has been documented by many studies done by researchers. Talkative people are rated as smarter, better looking, more interesting, and more desirable as friends. Velocity of speech counts as well as volume. Fast talkers are ranked as more competent and likable than slow ones. In reality, there is zero correlation between being the best talker and having the best ideas. Jennifer Wheeler, in her book, The Genius of Opposites, says, often conflict arises when people do not realize that your strengths are my weaknesses. When stress happens, our personality characteristics go into overdrive. Introverts shut down and extroverts talk more. This creates tension. The introvert's thinking, won't she ever stop talking? And the extrovert is thinking, what's going on in her head? Outside stressors can bring out our fears and lower our tolerance levels. Introverts become more internally focused. Extroverts go into high energy mode. Traditionally, many think that the ideal leader is the person who stands up, speaks out, gives orders, and makes plans. They're generally the most dominant, outgoing people in a group. But according to Adam Grant at Wharton University, this is not always the case. His research found that introverted leaders can be more effective and achieve better outcomes than extroverts in certain circumstances. The determining factor is who leaders are managing. He tested the different ways that introverts and extroverts behave in group situations. He did what's known as the T-shirt study. 163 university students participated and were divided up into teams of 5. Each team had a designated leader and 4 followers. They were given a pile of T-shirts and asked to fold as many as they could in 10 minutes. One student in each group was an actor and had been taught a really fast, efficient way to fold shirts. At the beginning of the competition, the actor told his team that he knew a great folding method and asked if they wanted to learn it. It was found that teams whose leaders had an introverted style was more likely to listen to the actor's idea. Leaders with an extroverted style were less likely to accept input. This made the difference. Groups who listened folded faster. The study found that when members are proactive, those more likely to offer ideas for improvement, introverted leaders were more successful. When members are not proactive, extroverted leaders were more successful. Another study by Jim Collins found that every single one of the 11 best performing companies in the US were led by CEOs who were described by their peers as modest, unassuming, soft-spoken, quiet, shy. Introverts tend to assume leadership positions within groups when they really have something to contribute. They listen carefully to the ideas of the people they lead. This gives them an advantage over leaders who rise to the top simply because they are comfortable talking a lot or being in control. In his research, Grant found that pairing extroverted leaders with employees who take initiative and speak out can lead to friction, while pairing the same group of employees with an introverted leader can be a pathway to success. Passive groups do well with extroverted leaders, and proactive groups do well with introverted ones. So, as a leader, start by getting to know your team, and then assess what kind of leader the team needs to be successful. You will find some additional information on being a board member, active listening, and resolving conflict on the Manitoba Agriculture website under Industry Leadership. Now, how can we work together? Jennifer Kowheeler, in her book, The Genius of Opposites, suggests, accept the alien. You can't change your opposite, but you can understand them. Once you are able to accept this fact, you're in for much less stress. Bring on the battles. See disagreement as necessary to arrive at better outcomes because you challenge each other to come up with better solutions together than you would alone. Cast the character. Know each person's role in a scenario and cast them so that you bring out each other's best. Opposites share the credit no matter what role they take. Destroy the dislike. When you respect each other and act like friends, you can talk openly and have fun. Each can't offer everything. Know that each one of you is incapable of offering everything. So for true diversity, you work together to provide the widest range of options to others. And some other solutions for working together. Keep focused on results. What is the common goal? Learn about personality styles and their characteristics. Determine where each of you fit on the introvert-extrovert scale. Think about what each needs in terms of processing information, energy, and how you prefer to socialize. Respect the wiring and learn to speak each other's language. Accept that you cannot change each other. Remove the elephant from the room. Talk about your differences and what you need. For example, telling your coworkers that when your door is closed, it doesn't mean you're not unhappy with anyone. It means you need some quiet time. Develop a code that helps you to communicate. We're missing each other. Let me go on a tangent for a few minutes. Meet regularly and talk to address any problems quickly. Learn about body language and how it is interpreted. Scientist Amy Cuddy has an excellent TED Talk on this subject. And give it time. Building understanding takes time. So that brings us to the end. 5 things to remember. It has been scientifically proven that introverts and extroverts process information differently. Stimulating environments drain the energy of introverts and energize extroverts. Introverts form ideas in order to talk. Extroverts talk in order to form ideas. The type of leader depends on the team. You can't change your opposite, but you can understand them. These relationships are most successful when opposites stop focusing on their differences and use approaches that move them towards results. Introverts and extroverts are both leaders. Whether board members approach leadership in a boisterous, extroverted way or a thoughtful, quiet way, both can achieve amazing results. And that brings us to the end of the webinar. As a result of your participation today, you'll receive a follow-up email that will include an evaluation. When it arrives, please take a moment to click on the link and share your thoughts. The email will also include various resources we referenced in the webinar. You can also ask questions or request a copy of the presentation by emailing us at leadership@gov.mb.ca. And you can stay connected to us until there are more webinars. You can send questions to leadership@gov.mb.ca. You can visit the Manitoba Agriculture website and click on Industry Leadership. You can follow us on Twitter, and you can watch the recorded webinars on YouTube at www.youtube.com/Manitoba Agriculture.